Hey guys, welcome to my session. My name is Jared Young, and today I want to be talking about how Jamf is the Champf and how we within our district deployed 750 plus MacBook Airs to our teachers with just a small team of 7. And so before I get started, I want to have you guys just look at this forward-looking statement disclaimer from Jamf. And so I'll just take a brief moment here while you guys look over that. All right. Like I said, my name is Jared Young. I'm the Network and Server Manager for Central Unified School District in Fresno, California. We currently oversee roughly 23 school sites with 16,000 students and roughly 2,000 staff. And we support that all with a team of 7 people. And for my current role, I oversee the networking and server infrastructure, both wired and wireless, and anything having to do with the server like VMs and things like that. And my other role is I'm also the Jamf admin. I've created the infrastructure that we have within our environment, and I maintain and manage all that from the profiles and policies, app distribution. I'm kind of the head on that. And so this one-to-one deployment was kind of my project that I was able to do for our district and lead that. And then the team that we have in our department, I was led them so that we were able to get a productive and successful deployment. And so I wanted to kind of show you guys today the how we were able to be successful in this, and to give you guys hope that it can be done with such a small team to manage such a large amount of devices all at once. And so today what I want to cover in our session is just kind of give you an overview of the history of our Mac management within the district and how we got to where we're at, how we were able to plan for success in this rollout, and how it led up to really being successful for us during this time of COVID as well. The project was every teacher does get a Mac. And then to show you kind of what's next for our district and upcoming. So the Mac management history for our districts, it is started out with, we didn't have anything in place. And so we literally had to, or I had literally had to touch every device that came in. So we were manually configuring every device. And we didn't really have a big Mac presence to, justify the use of a management system in place. And so from 2012, when I came on board in Central Unified, to about 2016, it was manually configuring every MacBook, iMac, or iPad that came through. And our majority of our devices were in labs. And so we had some student labs, and that ended up becoming a huge headache when I gained the role of computer support. And so I was in these labs constantly, figuring out how to fix what the students kind of messed with, whether it's inappropriate wallpaper on a mass scale, manipulating data from one computer to another, or just other system preferences. And so it became a huge headache, and I was spending a lot of time managing these things on my own. And so I did a ton of research and proposed to my boss at the time that we needed an MDM to kind of oversee this and get this under control. And so I came across Jamf in early 2016 and was really impressed how they were able to manage both iOS and macOS at the same time under one pane of glass. And so all of my Jamf knowledge is self-taught, and I did a ton of self-study and research and things like that, and testing before deploying the fall of 2016. And so later that year, I was able to also go up to Cupertino and get CCT certified to kind of help me acknowledge that I was, I knew what I was doing at that point. It was more of just a certification. So this picture here is one of our lab refreshes that we did in 2016. And we ended up, this was before we had Jamf deployed. And so we had to touch every one of these Macs that came in. And on the left there, you can see the old Macs that we've discarded and put the new ones in place. But using Apple Remote Desktop, I was able to use a little bit of scripting to push out some settings. But using that with Profile Manager and some in-place things that, and a small team to touch all these devices, it was very time-consuming and super hard to get through. And so even though that we set all that up with parental controls and profile manager and all that, day one, students came in and messed stuff up because they had access to some system preferences. I wasn't able to make mass changes and keep things locked down. And so this was countless hours that we came across. And once we did get Jamf installed and in place, it was, such a time saver. It took a huge weight off of my shoulders and my team's shoulders as well as we progressed forward with this. And so it was a nightmare just getting it set up and ready for student use. And so it's really hard when you have smart kids in the room and they know how to manipulate that data. And once we got that solution in place, it was smooth sailing after that. All right. Then came Jamf after Profile Manager and Apple Remote Desktop and that. And so this is an early photo of me rolling out iPads. Just look at the old Jamf UI there on the right with the blue and the white pane of glass that they had. And then I know you probably can't see it on your screen, but on the left, it does say Apple managed Apple IDs. And so I was in the beginning stages of learning how to manage these things, if we were going to use managed Apple IDs or not. And I kind of like this photo because it just kind of shows the beginnings of how I did my testing process of having a bunch of iPads there and going through the UI and, just testing over and over again. And so once we got things where we could, roll them out and get them, get devices re-enrolled and stuff like that within the Jamf UI, this picture here is kind of an example of that. This is a different lab that we have. I really like this because it shows the uniformity of what we could do with the product. And so this was another step in our process in preparing for a one-to-one that we didn't know that was coming, years down the line. And so I'm able to make the wallpaper uniform, the dock as well, and lock down those areas of system preferences so that these students couldn't make these changes and mess it up for the next student that was coming in. And even if they were somehow able to circumvent things, I had scripts in place that were either easy to wipe the machine or fix whatever they had manipulated. And so I just thought that was a cool photo to show. Once we got it rolled out, it shows the uniformity and what we could do with our smart groups and pre-enrollment staging as well. So now, fast forward a year or two, we've had Jamf in place, and it's kind of the norm now for us. And so we've had about 2 years of Jamf planning and rollout, from 2016 to 2018. And then now we're looking forward to maybe getting a one-to-one. And so come 2019, mid-2019, we're, getting some top-down buy-in that we want to get our teachers on MacBooks so that we can get some consistency there. And so the planning for success and the foundation that went into all this was really allowing us to have this sandbox to get these things out and play, and for me to really understand what Jamf is capable of and how to fix things if they come up. And so the other thing that helped me tackle this was the CCT training, which is now like Jamf 100, Jamf 200. And then what we also did to prepare for this rollout was to utilize Jamf Connect last year. And then we did that in conjunction with the Azure cloud, where we put our AD up in the cloud and then utilize those accounts so that on initial login, they got an account created for them. It created them as a local admin for the account, and then it checked their password against their AD password as well. So we had some syncing going on there for that for the teachers. And so another big help for us was when we, included our services with Apple during this project. They used a company called Zones, and they were able to do a lot of our preloading of our apps like Chrome and Adobe Creative Cloud and some asset management so that we could do some pre-inventory uploads for within Jamf so that we're able to manage all these devices or at least find them from an inventory perspective as well. So up next on the next slide is going to be a little video. It's about 1.5 minutes long. This is really just a fun little video that I took from our security camera and sped it up and showing us when we got all of these Macs in and our team unloading those pallets and just kind of try not to get distracted by the students on the upper left that are running laps, but it is a fun little thing. And so we're going to jump into that now. All right, so you got to include the cleanup too on that, right? And when we get those pallets in, man, it was overwhelming for our team, and we were like, just what are we getting ourselves into on this? And so once we brought them indoors and started staging things and breaking down those boxes and getting through all that, we just, verifying that they're in the login screen and all that kind of stuff. I came up with a process for us to, really dive into what does it take to get these into the teacher's hands so that they are comfortable coming off of Windows, or even if they're transitioning off of Mac. Now that we're standardizing, what do we do to help bridge that gap for those teachers that might not be where some of the other teachers are? And so I have some helpful little details that I came up with. A shortcuts card that has my Sweet 16 of keyboard shortcuts to just help people's workflow. I also created a booklet that walks them through on how to log into Chrome, Adobe, Microsoft Office so that they can activate those licenses and introduce them a little bit to their Mac because they have the Touch ID and the trackpad and those kind of things. We also included a case, a little sleeve for the MacBook, and it had a little pocket on there for their charger. In-house, we built a training site for them so they can read some articles and watch some videos that we've done as well in-house so that they are able to, transition off of that, and it helps them a little bit. Our PR department also put together a video with, the head of the teachers union, our superintendent, some principals and other teachers to kind of promote and get people excited for this thing that was coming. It was a big culture shift that was coming. The other details that I put in self-service, which I'll mention in a little bit as well, but just to make self-service a true in-house app and in-house repository for our teachers to go to get those apps or bookmarks that they need. And then we also gave them an adapter so that they can connect to their projector or any USB-A type devices that they might still have. And so this is a view of the shortcuts card, which I should be able to have for you for download on the left there within this event. And so you guys can use this for your own environment as well. And so it has some shortcuts that I thought were going to be super helpful on there. And then on the back of the card, I have a QR code that links to all of them that Apple lists on their website. And then I have my contact info below where it says need help with your Mac, or our department contact info there. And so you guys can use this. I did do rounded corners on a heavier weight, and we worked with Office Depot on this. And so this card was really helpful, and it looked good. It was professional looking. And so you guys can use that as a resource for yours as well. I designed this in Pages, and I just, did a little template under the business card side of there. And this is kind of the result that we had for that. I also designed the booklet that we did in Pages as well. So for us to plan truly for success in this, I really wanted to treat self-service as not just an app store, but a way that our department and other folks that we work with to be as a resource for us as well in-house. And so I added some scripts on the back end if you log in as an IT admin that help you resolve issues that might come up in your environment. And so with all the testing that I was able to do, I had plan B, C, and D in place with scripts ready to fix these possible bugs that I just couldn't figure out. One, for instance, was when they logged in with the Azure Cloud Jamf Connect thing, sometimes it would not create them as an admin account. It would put them as standard. So the problem with that for us was they were not able to add printers. And so I had a script that we would have the IT help person log in with self-service, run the script, it reboots their computer, and then now they're a local admin. And so things like that, just having those plan Bs in place with scripts. We also have a one-touch button service in self-service for us to wipe the Mac once we receive it back in. So it reinstalls Catalina with a clean install, so it's ready to go for the next user. Some other ideas would be to have Jamf Recon, Jamf Policy there as well, and then give users some choices for their apps or their packages that they want to use, for whether that's document camera software that might not be available in the macOS App Store, or some smartboard software, just depending on their environment. Just really make it user-friendly. It would be my suggestion. The other thing that we were able to do was pre-staging. The pre-staging is a big help for us in terms of scoping out policies and profiles, as well as smart groups. And so we can push these policies and profiles out quickly based on those groupings. And if you need more help on that, please ask questions about it. I'm an open book on that kind of stuff. We really wanted to empower our end users to be successful in this, as well as our support team that comes behind it. And then my last bit of advice is just to test, and test it again. And then ask questions to those forums like Jamf Nation or Mac Admin Slack team. You can really find some help there. So the project finally arrives. We did a soft launch in December of 2019. And we did it to a select group of people so that we can kind of work some kinks out, figure out what we want to say and how these kind of rollout is going to actually look on a mass scale. And so the first and foremost thing is that we had top-down buy-in from our superintendents all the way down into our principals. And so it was really fun seeing the excitement of people getting a new device. Some teachers had devices that were 6, 7 years old. And so getting a refresh for a brand new MacBook Air was really exciting for them. I got to play Santa for like 3 straight months, and that was super exciting for me. One of the biggest questions that we did run into, though, was why are we going with Apple? We've had Windows for so long. This is what we're used to. And so what I would tell teachers is that we're investing in your consistency, not just for you, but for us as a support team as well. The look and feel of macOS has not changed in 20 years. And so I know that's going to be changing coming up with Big Sur a little bit, but you still have the menu bar at the top. You still have the dock on the bottom. And, you get things through the Finder or Launchpad, and you have your apps that are available to you. And so the look and feel might change over time, but the root of that is still going to be consistent for you guys. And so we wanted to invest in that. There's some other things on the back end for us why we went with them. It would be inventory. There's some security pieces there, management, app deployment as well. And I can go on and on with that list. And so that's where we came at with that. So we went from an apprehension in the beginning to an appreciation. And so we were able to listen to our teachers' concerns and really just, help them out there and empower them to become successful in their new teaching environment with this. And this was before COVID was happening that we started rolling this out. And so once we transitioned into this distance learning, man, they're really appreciating things. And we're not getting a whole lot of calls and things about the Mac itself. It's more of, how do I do this? And so we're trying to, encourage them different ways that they would, in a Windows environment. And so another thing for us was the Touch ID's wow factor. They're able to get in and on their machine super quick, and a lot of people were really impressed with that. The Mac also has allowed them to make room for discovery and be creative in their environments using, not just the native Mac apps, but they're finding apps that are helping their teachers' workflow to be super successful, and we're able to package those up and send those out, or get them through the macOS App Store, which has been super helpful for them. And this really has been able to provide the bridges to close that gap that we were seeing. And so we're seeing that come closer and closer on the back end of this project. And so Bridges that we use to close that gap were, getting Microsoft Office licenses for them, because, pages, numbers, and Keynote might look and feel a little bit different and not translate easily for them. We also included Chrome because we are a Google environment on the back end for our learning management system with Google Classroom. And then we utilize Gmail as well. So that just kind of fit for us to have that already preloaded. And then the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. So we wanted to have them have access to Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and all of those apps that are helpful for somebody to be creative in their own right. And so switching from Mac to Windows was a huge culture shift. And we wanted to have them think different, have them teach different, if you will, as well. And so going in, that really helped me craft a deployment in a way that made it as non-threatening as possible for our teachers. We really wanted them to think differently about their technology and how they used it in a classroom. And that's really coming into play now as they're 100% on technology with this distance learning piece from where we're at in California. I'm so grateful that we were able to even get these out in time. And then we even had a school or two that had to come in, from a distant kind of deployment. I would do one-on-one sessions with each teacher at 2 different school sites after COVID hit. And so I spent a lot of time, every Tuesday and Thursday from 8 to 4, bringing a teacher in every 15 minutes to deploy a Mac to them, because that's what it took to get these devices out to our teachers in a successful manner. So with that, I thank you for listening. I know it's just kind of a quick overview of our story of how we got, we went from a smattering of devices, Chromebooks, Windows, MacBooks, you name it. And we, solidified on that. And we're now, currently on a 1-to-1 with our teachers with MacBook Airs. And so that's our story with that. And then we utilize Jamf on the back end for that. And I'm, an open book on sharing my, advice, or, if you need access, if you're beginning in this and trying to figure out how do I do this, I can get you guest access on our end as well. If you just message me to show you, our environment, what we've done on how we should organize, iOS, tvOS, and macOS on getting these into our users' hands. So thanks for listening on this, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I just encourage you guys to fill out the feedback using that widget below. And so we'll see you next time. Thanks.